Are you ready to learn from someone whose vision is to create a world where all children have meaningful lives and are valued in their communities? This is the Scale You podcast, where every single season we're bringing you on behind the scenes of different people's stories or backgrounds. And in season 1, we've covered entrepreneurship. Season 2 was digital nomads. Season 3 were people who had multiple businesses. And now on season 4, we are talking to a lot of brilliant and amazing authors and how they've been able to scale themselves through their books. My name is Lacaba. I'm the co-founder of 2XU, an executive assistant business here in the Philippines. And if you're ready to ditch the grind, let's go over and scale you. Now, our guest today is a paediatric occupational therapist with over 20 years of experience and the co-founder of the MoveAbout Therapy Services. Alongside his wife, Kathy, they've developed the MoveAbout activity cards and workshops focusing on behavior regulation and connection. He's also the author of the Amazon bestseller, Changing the Story, offering strategies for managing challenging behaviors. He believes in supporting the people who support kids, from families to professionals. He shares his insights on podcasts and the MoveAbout YouTube channel, making a lasting impact in the field of pediatric therapy. Hey guys, so please help me welcome our guest today, Dave. Hey Dave.
Hey Leanne, great to be with you.
Yeah, excited to have you. Just before this, we were talking about a little of catching up on things in life, and I would love to dive into that. So before we go into anything else, of course, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the amazing audience of Scale You podcast. A little bit of just your background of like how you got here to where you're at in your industry and what you do, as well as kind of like any highlights you also want to talk about that led you to your book.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm Dave Jereb. My wife and I are both occupational therapists, and we founded MoveAbout Therapy Services about 17 years ago. We now have 3 clinics in Sydney, Central Coast and Newcastle, with about 35 OTs, and we help hundreds of kids in Australia, in the sort of greater Sydney and beyond area. Look, I love helping kids. I guess our core purpose is to strive towards a world where one day all kids, regardless of their differences, can have meaningful lives and be valued by their communities. And so particularly differences and really embracing differences. And we do that by supporting the people who support the kids. And so that is their families who are supporting them. Therapy is just 1 hour a week, but they're with them the rest of their lives. But it's also our team, because our team are the ones supporting those families. So if we can support our team and be able to have a strong team that stays together for a long time, that's super helpful. And then extending that to our community as well is a really big part of that. And did I cover everything? Is it what else did you wanted to get to the book as well and how it got to there? Is that the case?
Yeah, it's basically how you got to kind of the process of how you thought of like, oh, I want to write a book about this, and then how that process came about for you.
Yeah, I have a lot of books in my head, but this particular one has been in my head for a long time. And so I've had some really great influences in my life. I've been able to work with some amazing occupational therapists. I didn't even mention my sister was an occupational therapist, so she was probably my first influence, my sister, my wife, and then a lot of great people. And I was really able to get some influences that helped me understand behavior and challenging behaviors in kids, but from a more relationship-based lens, a more connection-based lens, and to sort of marry those worlds together in a way that I could help people understand. So you didn't need to be your strict dad that's coming down with the finger pointing and get really cranky in that compliance mode. And you also didn't need to be absolute fluff and marshmallows to where you do everything the child says and wrap them in cotton wool and do that sort of, maybe free range parenting is a word we might do. And we can talk about sort of different aspects of these that we get to. We want to be connected, and we want to connect with kids to be able to help them get that internal compass. And so I had some great knowledge that I wanted to share with people. And I did that through trainings. I did that as we brought on new team members. And I realized even when we were bringing on people with lots and lots of experience, what I was saying was new to them. And they were like, it was mind blowing. And I was like, this is like so fundamental and so straightforward, but it kept surprising people. And so I just sort of had to put it down in a book. I guess the other thing that was happening was we were growing as a business, and I was looking for influences and coaching beyond OT. And so I found a place called Clinic Mastery, which was amazing. And they were allied health business coaches. So I went from OT to allied health business coaching. And we started to get some practices. I would say OTs and speechies tend to be a little more softies and heart-driven, whereas not that physios and podiatrists aren't heart-driven, but they're more likely to not see people ongoing as long, and they're really better at the billables and getting things through. And so they gave me some sort of balance and broadened my mindset in terms of getting different allied health. And then the next step, and also forming some great structures. And then I also tapped into Mike McAllister's book, Run Like Clockwork. His book was Clockwork. And then I did the Run Like Clockwork training. And we got a bunch of great systems in our clinic. And I was now able to delegate and trust people and give them roles and really understand those things. And then I found Dent and their Key Person of Influence program. And or membership, and that was really life-changing, where I started to think about how can I create this ecosystem. I'm going a long way back to where you want to be, but can you allow me to just tell one more bit of story that gets us there?
No, I love it.
So in OT, actually in all allied health, there is really a skills shortage. There's not enough therapists to meet the need. And in Australia, we've got the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So there was a greater need, but not enough therapists. That is changing a little bit as the government is tightening the budget. But a couple of years ago, I got to a stage where one of my therapists resigned. She wanted to move closer to her partner's family because his dad was unwell. And so she had been traveling an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half each way daily. And she said, I just can't do it anymore. And it's completely understandable. We tend to not lose people for jobs up the road, but life is when they move on. She resigned in November, gave me 10 weeks notice, and I couldn't find someone that I thought was a good cultural fit. And I was really frustrated because I'd never had that problem before. And I just decided I never wanted to place a job out again. I said, I'm never placing a job out again. We're going to have a waiting list of people that want to work for us. And the way that we do that is we just need to let people know how amazing we are. And we just need to give and share. And if I'm honest about being vision focused, that I want to get to a world where one day all kids, regardless of their challenges and differences, they'll have meaningful lives and be valued by the community. If I really care about that, then I need to be supporting people who don't even work for me, who may never work for me, who might be on the opposite side of the planet. And so MoveAbout made a shift where we said we just need to get into giving. We need to be better at social media, but it's about giving and sharing our knowledge because we have knowledge others don't have. So we got better at social media. We started running free webinars. We started running paid webinars. We started bringing out international speakers to run workshops. I started to do teaching, and we started to do mentoring with other professionals. I launched a community, which is now called the OT Sanctuary. It is for all our that's OT run. And writing the book and the course that goes with it. So the book is Challenging the Story, a surprisingly simple approach to supporting children with challenging behaviours. And the course is Challenging the Story of Behaviour, which was a live course that now I've got the online course almost ready to launch as well. Putting those together was a really easy way to give people everywhere this little bit of knowledge that was so impactful to the people we crossed. And it was part of that bigger business ecosystem of being a place that lives our values of always learning and being connection driven and making a difference. But it was a core part of that. And the way I wrote it was actually quite tied in with our connected, playful nature and accessibility. I wrote it as a story. So it's, I don't know if you've ever, being a business podcast, there probably are people that listen who know the 1 Minute Manager book series.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing book. I probably read it a couple of times a year. I pull it out and just have a quick look through. It's simple, right? There's like 3 things you learn, but it's easy to consume. And there's something about it being a story that helps it resonate. And throughout history, we've learned through story. Like since the beginning of time, and then literally 10 minutes ago in history, someone decided no textbooks need to be boring and facts and figures. And I don't know why, because that's not actually how we learn. So Challenging the Story is actually written as a story. And so it's easy to read. You can read it in about 70 minutes. It's easy to consume. It's easy to integrate that knowledge because it's meaningful, it's relevant. You build connection with the characters in there. And each chapter finishes with a reflection point that helps you think about the child you're thinking about, whether it's your child or a child you work with. Mm-hmm. And so you learn the lesson through the storyline with points to reflect and get those insights. And so I guess the long story was I wrote it because it was knowledge that I had that I realized others didn't. And also it was part of this getting our knowledge out to the world and creating this ecosystem and somewhat creating this idea of being a key person of influence in the world so that I have the opportunity to reach more people. And it was a great way to do that.
That's brilliant because breaking it down that way. And when it comes to writing a book, it's definitely like, oh, no one has actually written this. I should write about it because I actually have things that I know will be very helpful for people. But the part of your story where I love we need a wait list and it's perfect to write a book about it. So then we're already attracting people who see our ideas or see our values and kind of works as a filter. Like, oh, have you read the book? Oh, if you haven't, read it. Let me know what you think. And it's a great way to see if people get it, what you're trying to do, and of course when they don't. Since the book has come out, what has kind of been, even if subtle changes or really big changes that you've seen, not just in your business, but also in your day-to-day?
Yeah, look, it's a really good touch point. So it is something that if I'm chatting to someone who might be a future person that works with us or might be someone that I might end up presenting for, it might just someone that I want to share the word with. It's something that I'll often give, and I'll write a little something in it. And I love the idea, and I think this is the Daniel Priestley thing. A book is a business card that nobody ever throws away, right? Nobody throws away. They're not going to throw away a book. It's worth something. But for me to ship that to someone, it cost me $10. It's no big expense, and it sort of helps me live my values if nothing comes of it, and live my vision. But it does actually, people read it and they're like, if it resonates with them, they're probably a good fit for us, whether that's as a team member or as a client. So not necessarily, I'm not retiring off this book by any means. Actually, I'm barely getting a holiday a year out of this book, even with decent sale. It's not that you make lots of money from royalties from the book, but it is a business card no one throws away. It is a great way to say, here's a snapshot of my values and how I approach working with kids. And that does seem to attract people who are a good fit for working for us, people who are a good fit to work with us. We got to a stage where after, and not just because of the book, but because of our change and pivot to just giving, while no one else could find therapists, we hired 15 people in 15 months without a job ad.
Wow. Super easy to pick and choose already.
People came to us, and we probably had 30 people in that time that reached out to us directly. There were no job ads. They came to us. We said, come visit us and see what we do. Most of them, I said, here's a copy of my book. See what you think about it. And we found people that are a good fit for culture. We needed that many people because before the workforce dried up, we had doubled the size of 2 of our clinics, and we had added a 3rd clinic that was huge. And then the market for OTs really dried up, and we're like, oh, we've got all this space and not enough therapists. But this change made a big difference. And, it is just a really nice, having that book. People do, it's not why you shouldn't do it for this reason, but people are kind of impressed when you have a book. And they're sort of like, wow, this must be so much work. And what I actually found was, because it was something I was so passionate about, once I got started, it just poured out of me. It really was, it took a long time to get it started, but then once it started, it just poured out of me, and it just felt right. It felt, it's in alignment with my values, alignment with my vision. It helped me get that over the line, along with getting the publisher and getting a few deadlines. But I wrote the first 3 chapters. I wrote on the road, driving through the desert.
Wow.
In Western Australia. Kathy was driving. We all feel better when she drives and I don't. And I was on my phone using sort of swipe text in my notes. I wrote the first 3 chapters. I wrote some ideas first, and then the first 3 chapters, and then it sat there for months and months and months, and I did nothing. I put it into a Word doc, and it was like 12 pages, and I was like completely overwhelmed by 12 pages. And then what happened was we went on holidays, and my kids, I had just shown them ChatGPT. And so with them, we created Minecraft books to take away on holidays in ChatGPT. So I got them to come up with the story, and I made it so that it was at a level they could read, which was really cool. And then I went, oh, that's right. I can get into Word and I can make a booklet in Word. And so I did that for their books and put some pictures in, and we took them away on holidays. And then I went, that's what I need to do to be able to look at mine. Not the ChatGPT part, the booklet part. I put those 12 pages into like A5 booklet so I could see 2 on the screen. And as soon as I could visualize the book, I plugged in the rest of the chapter headings, and 2 to 3 weeks later, the book was written.
Wow. Just needed that outside the box idea for sure.
It was like, it's just so funny that like I was stuck, and just visualizing it was the piece that I needed. Now I got it published through Rethink Press, and now I've got these tips from them about how we can organize things with cards to get the chapters. And so the next book should be much easier than this one. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
That's super cool. And I agree on the, it's one of the best business cards. I was in a speaker's dinner, and I was holding my own book for one of my friends who hasn't arrived yet. And then every time someone asked me my name, I would just take out the book and point to my name, because it's hard for some people to like imagine what my name looks like. And someone said like, that's the biggest business card ever. I'm like, it's the best business card ever. Just because there's that sense of authority, and I guess that also that sense of like, this is kind of just ownership of like, these are the things that align with me, with my ideas, and how I want to change the world in a lot of ways. That's brilliant. So what is kind of, as you've scaled and grown and gone through so many things since the last time I talked to you as well, what has been kind of the still a little bit difficult parts and of kind of getting to where you are now, like other than the hiring part, which you've kind of funny enough fixed with the book, what are still kind of bits and pieces of, I guess, bottlenecks as you still continue to scale?
Yeah, I would say the biggest bottleneck for me is reining in the ideas. You know, I'm a stereotypical entrepreneur visionary that has so many ideas, and I love the first 80% and I hate the last 20%. And so I have a lot of 80% done lead magnets, 80% done courses, 80% done. So, and so I guess sort of figuring out what you're going to do. Some people are high on the prioritize and give it numbers 1, 2, 3. Some people are like, what's meaningful? I'm more on the what's meaningful. What I'm trying to do is blend those two. And so it's like, I love every minute of my day. There's nothing I do that I don't love. But just because you love it doesn't mean it's the best use of your time and gets you closer to your vision. And just because, it's on fire, it shouldn't be that it's just on fire that you're doing it. I have a great team around me, which is really cool. But I am just trying to figure out, how do I really figure out what's going to give me the biggest bang and get projects finished and get through that boring part of that last 20% as well. That's really the hardest part. But I still achieve a lot. Like, people sort of like, Dave, I don't know where you find hours in the day to do it. And the reality of it is I have a great team. If I have a superpower, it's finding really great humans to work around me. I do very, very little for my clinic business, except spread the word wider, which is the most important for me to do.
Fantastic. I love that it is a bottleneck, but at the same time, you have freed yourself up enough to be able to start things, and then basically like, hey, 20%, here you go. It sounds like the same thing with your book. It's like you got it like 80% through, and you just needed the printing it out as your final like 20%.
Sort of. Actually, the book was different. I sort of got the first 10% is hard too, but I got that started. The cool thing was actually when I lined up with my publisher, and the timing was, if you want it out before Christmas, we need to get it done by August. And I actually had a course on, we were bringing out a speaker. I wanted to launch it for the course, and that was in November. I was like, can we get it by November? And they're like, you've got like 2 weeks to get it done.
Wow.
And I I had it 80% done by the time I had that conversation. Mm-hmm. So I got to the 80% mark. I had it written, but there was a lot of editing stuff, which is the part I don't like. But because they said you've got 2 weeks to get it done, if you want it for this course you want to launch it at in November, that got me, that intensity got me over the lines.
It's usually when there's a deadline outside of us that kind of makes us like, oh yeah, other people are relying on me. That's funny. Well, what has kind of been, other than kind of polarizing, but also just being that magnet with the book, how has it changed how you interact with the world? Like either having a published book or kind of, like I said, having that sense of ownership of like, these are the values that I stand for. This is the way that I look at the world, kind of shared everywhere. How's that affected like you as a person?
That's a good question. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a great organizing topic. It's a great organizing force for conversation. It's bridging some worlds in my industry that don't often talk to each other. So in the therapy world with kids, there are sort of more behavioral, and that's more compliance-based behavior, more cause and effect, dare I say more dog training-y kind of therapy. They would not like me saying that. And then there's more touchy-feely relationship-based approaches. And what I've done in this book, if I've sort of bridged those gaps, I'm certainly coming from the more relationship-based, but I'm using the language. I'm talking about antecedent behavior consequence. So it's enabled me to have a language and give a language to others to talk across those two divides and to be able to use the words that these guys use, but layer in connection and relationship and the things that I believe make it stick, because I do think that connection is the key to everything. And it sounds fluffy and people sort of think it's too easy, or if it's nice, it's not going to work. But actually, that's what helps the neurons click. Connection sets up the brain to be calm and alert and attentive. It gets you ready for learning. It gets you to be ready for engagement, but it also helps the neurons fire and wire more strongly. So learning is better when you're connected, when you're engaged, when you're feeling safe and organized. So, but there's a nice structure to antecedent behavior consequence. And so I've come up with some structures, and in the course I've sort of expanded that into the ABC ideas framework, where we have antecedent behavior consequence, but then we take into account the child's individual differences, their development, their environment, their activities, and their social relationships. And that gives a framework that we can work through to understand challenges that arise. But it does meet the need for a lot of things that we do in therapy. It's organising for our clinic to be able to follow this structure when we're thinking through and reasoning a case, when we're supporting families and schools to do that. So and you can give someone an easy to consume hour read, or it's on Audible too, or listen, where you have to listen to my voice. But people told me you have to do it in the author's voice, and so I know nobody likes to hear their own voice, but people tell me it's good. But yeah, they can consume it in about an hour or so, and then you're on the same page, and then you've got a same language, and they might agree or disagree, but they know where you're coming from. It's a nice way to do things.
That's wonderful. I love the idea of shared language. I never thought of it that way before, but I remember when I've met people where I've read their books, and then it kind of becomes kind of an inside joke of like, oh, you said this one, like, oh, that's a reference to this. I love that. I can imagine that it makes it easier to build relationships too, especially if someone have already read your book before they met you. They're like, oh, I love what you do, and it's that like you said, shared language back and forth. I love that.
I think just on that, I do think that when people have read your book, it's like they've spent an hour or two with you. Like it feels like you're building, your trust is ahead of where it would have been if you just met cold. And so I don't know, they talk about sometimes it's, sort of you need those 7 hours of connection or however many it is. And if someone reads your book, that's a big chunk of that time of building trust that they have with you, particularly if you really only want to do business with people who align with your values. So if they hated your book, it doesn't matter. That's a good way of filtering them out without having to spend the time with them. And if they love your book, then you're already 2 steps ahead in building that trust relationship.
Yeah. No, that was going to be my next question is like, what has been your kind of favorite story of meeting someone who's read your book before you even met them?
It's not really a hadn't met, but it is a family that comes for therapy with us. And they brought their daughter to us when I was at our Sydney clinic. And then I moved to the Central Coast, and it was sort of 5 or so years later, they had brought their next daughter to see us. And I didn't realise that they had come back to us because I'd moved to the Central Coast, so I wasn't at that clinic as often. And then they came along to my workshop that I did last November. And this mum just said, this book has changed our life. It's changed how we look at our kids. It's changed how we approach them. Like the book didn't change the kids, but the book changed how the parents understood the behaviours that were happening, so they weren't unexpected. They reframed them. They were able to move from the what of the behaviour to the why of behaviour, which then it just made sense. So they weren't frustrated as much. They were more understanding and caring. They changed their approach to be more connection-driven. And that was, like before my course had even started, on the day I saw her, I went up and said hi and had this conversation with her, and I found this out. And like I literally had tears in my eyes before I even started the workshop. So that was a pretty cool story.
That's amazing. It's kind of uplifting and at the same time kind of a validation. Like it works. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And it's the same because I've heard the same with we spoke about 1 Minute Manager where I gave it to a friend who's like, every single person I hire is crap, blah, blah, blah. I gave them the book after the book, like every person now I hire is beautiful and amazing. Like they do exactly what they say. I'm like, no, it's you changed. It's the book. And it's that same effect of like the kids hasn't changed. It's basically the point of view of like how or who they are to the kids' lives as well that's changed them. That's brilliant. Well,
it's pretty cool. That idea of radical responsibility. I love it. It's, like, what are the things in my life that the things I don't like, if I can find what I'm complicit in, if I can find the things, like, so we always want to find someone else to blame for these kind of things, but if I actually take radical responsibility, I can change every one of those things that are my fault. I can't change anything that's your fault, Leanne. Only you can change those things. So, yeah, it's pretty cool if you do make that shift and you do take ownership of those things. And, if I can support families and if I can support teachers and therapists to really understand that changing the child is not ideal because we want to love them how they are. We want to help them be adaptable over time, but actually changing the environment or changing the activity, particularly the social environment, changing your approach, you can get change in the child today. And that's what people found is that when I stopped trying to change the child, when I stopped trying to fix and I started figuring out how can I support, how can I wonder and be curious and find the why rather than just hammering down on the what, then I can make to be able to have that child be successful in what they're doing in daily life. And our life runs better in home. We get out of the house better. We get to bed more easily. Meal times aren't a stress. School's going better. And when it's all about the child, that's going to take a long time. So that's going to be a tough process. So we have fully developed brains. We need to, if we can take responsibility, we can affect a lot more change. And to be honest, that's not just with kids. More and more I'm talking to people about when you're looking at this child's behaviour, I also want you to look at the people around them and how they're responding. So then we'll look at what's the teacher's behaviour and why, what's their development and what's brought them to this piece and what's the cultural environment and they're meant to follow a curriculum and the principal's harping on them to get things done and that's a pressure for them. Or if I'm talking about a parent or I'm talking about peers or a therapist, or our response, why am I responding that way? What's my behaviour? What's led up to that? It's kind of cool when you take it broader and even working with team, it's a really nice way to step back and go, I like to start, I don't do this perfectly all the time, Leanne, but wherever I remember to, I like to think about challenges with other people in terms of unconditional positive regard and just know, yes, kids, but also all the adults in their life, they're doing the best they can with the resources they have. And so if I come from that point, they're not out to get me. They're coming to their history, their package, and whatever behavior they're doing that is setting me off, there's a why for that too. And so if we can understand that and be understanding, then we have a better chance to affect change. And also if we can think about what our contribution is too. So I don't know if I'm going on tangents that you're interested or not interested in, but it is a big deal.
It's a wonderful way of looking at things, and I've always loved that term, radical responsibility, as well. Yes, there is that sense of like, how is my behavior affecting them, but also looking at like, hey, there's a beautiful word, and I'm forgetting it right now off the top of my head, when you realize that the other person you're in front of has this whole other life that you don't even understand and see, and coming from that path and that intention of like, oh, they probably have things that I have no idea, just like how I have things that they have no idea. So it's keeping that in mind, and especially when it comes to being around kids, either raising them or helping their parents raise them, whether you're a teacher or a caregiver. It's still important to also see things from that point of view. So that's brilliant. So thank you for sharing that. That's actually a really, really powerful, amazing thought that hopefully, as people are listening or watching this, writing down as they're listening through.
In our therapy, we talk about approaching our therapy in a trauma-informed way or a trauma-sensitive way, and not just with people that have known trauma, but you almost need to, when things are going wrong and there's dysregulation, when people aren't calm and connected, you'll never know everyone that has trauma that crosses your path.
Yeah.
Right? So I try to approach everything in a trauma-informed way where we're trying to get connection and regulation first, understanding that there is a story leading up to whatever behavior's in front of me. And there's a good chance I'll never know what that is. But if I know that there probably is a story, I'm able to separate that whatever's happening is about me.
Yeah.
So that's the part that sets us off, right? Like you can watch someone have a meltdown on a street at someone else and you're like, oh, that's awkward, but it doesn't cut you inside. But if it's directed at you or it feels like it's directed at you, sometimes you cop it. But if you realize that wasn't about me, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not okay. We don't allow everyone to walk all over us or to be rude and obstinate, but we can approach that in a regulated way to be able to say, are you okay? Versus how dare you? Like there's a big difference in those approaches.
That's true. Well, with everything that you're doing, Dave, if science and technology advance more than it currently has, AI is going along, science is coming along. If we were able to duplicate you perfectly, like there's 10 Daves, 100, 300, a whole army of yous basically, how would you want to affect or change the world?
What a party. That could be chaos, Leanne. I'm not sure you should wish that on the world. But if we did it in a way that I would want to happen, it would be an army of Daves trying to strive to a place where all kids, regardless of their differences, have meaningful lives and are valued by their communities. Like that's what's important to me. And kids are our future, and all that stuff that sounds a little bit cheesy, but kids are our future, and kids are pure, and they're like they want to be good and they want to achieve, and some come with a rough package. Some come with a rough biological package. Some come with a rough environmental package. And, just a lot. I would say, I feel like 75% school is not the best structure for the way they learn. And so they've got these 12 years that they're not learning in the best way. So there'd be a lot of things I would change, but it would be about really valuing kids. And I would really want to approach those interactions through two main lenses. One is connection. Connection is key to everything. The biggest myth in business, Leanne, is the phrase, it's just business. Right? It is never just business. Even in the most businessy business of widget churning, twisting, factory, whatever it is, It's all about relationships. And so relationships are key, and relationships are key for setting up the brain to be connected to learn, connected to take on other people's ideas. We want to have a whole brain where we're connecting left and right and top and bottom and front and back. And we get that through making sure it's a calm, regulated brain. And connection does that. We get that oxytocin flowing around the brain. That's the love drug that mums and bubs get. And that love drug, oxytocin, calms the amygdala, which is your fear brain, your 5-alarm fire brain that's about fight or flight. And so if we can get connection, if we can see people as humans, if we can really get that within our workplaces, within our everyday life, the world will be a very different place. I think the other thing I would do is really get us refocused on, I talked about moving from the what to the why to understand behaviors, but moving us from the what to the why in our lives. And, that kind of Simon Sinek find your why is lovely. And it's also so important. You had Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning say that he who has a why can bear almost any how. And that's so true. And yet we start talking about work-life balance and all this stuff. And people say things like, I don't want to live to work. I want to work to live. And I'm like, that's kind of gross. Like, I don't want to write off 8 hours of my day to enjoy the rest. I want to live 100% of my life. And I'm one person. I want to love my work and I want to love my non-work. And that's cool. And the way we do that is by actually having a cause that's bigger than ourselves, that we can actually see change in the world. I think sometimes we get so focused on ourselves to try, and people say, you got to fill your cup first. You got to put on your oxygen mask first. And I do think to be regulated to help others. But if you stay focused on yourself, the world just gets smaller. I think we've missed the mark with young people talking about work-life balance, to talk about, fill your cup. And we've missed the idea that mums have meaningful lives by watching people enjoy the food that they've created, not by creating the perfect meal and sitting down first and consuming it. And it's not take care of yourself, but we're missing that huge value in when you create, when you produce, when you make the world a better place. There's something there that I think we've lost a little bit. And I'd really like to bring back connection and meaning across the world.
That's beautiful. I love that it's essentially reminding people, one, that there is just more to self, which it is important to know self, and like I said, learn how to regulate yourself. But it's also the other part of like, hey, you might get satisfaction with this, and someone else might not, or someone else, get satisfaction, and it might not be for you. It's just finding that connection and that, invisible string, basically tying people through different ways, and creating that connection. And I love what you said also. And like, it's just business. It never is. It's always something else in there, thrown in there, of like things that you don't know and things you'll probably never know. And same thing for the other person, for you. It's like things that they know about you and things that they'll never know about you. So that's a powerful and brilliant way that you want to change the world. So how can people find you, find your course that you're about to publish soon, and find out more about you?
Yeah, so MoveAbout Therapy Services is our business. So you can find things about MoveAbout in our clinics at moveabout.com.au. And if you click the courses tab or you do /courses, there'll be a place where you can sign up and get on the waiting list for the Challenging the Story of Behaviour course. I'm also on Instagram. I think it's Dave Jereb _OT. And I'm really loving LinkedIn at the moment. So you can just find me, Dave Jereb. They're good places to find me, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Loved having you. Loved sharing more about your thoughts and how you see the world. It's super, super cool. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great to connect with you again.
And again, of course, all of Dave's info is going to be found below. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Skill You podcast. And of course, if you like this, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button. And if you still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future episodes on the Skill You podcast. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And remember that small steps matters. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.